normal circumstances, I'd have a certain amount of sympathy with Nayef Aguerd. And I think people that are comparing his situation with that of Danny Ings have probably got it just a little bit wrong. Because there's differences, not just nuanced differences, big, whopping great differences. Danny Ings signed a 3-year contract at West Ham with the best of intentions. And I think when he signed it, he signed thinking, I'll play some football, I'll go and help this club out, we'll avoid relegation, which is where we were at the time. And little did he know he was going to win a European trophy. But even when he's not been played, he's been no trouble. He's never agitated for a move. He's never said, that's it, I want out. In fact, quite the contrary. In fact, he's been offered a route out of West Ham where we would offer to subsidise his wages and basically sell him back to his old club, Southampton. And he turned around and said, no, actually, it's fine. I quite like it here. So realistically, it's for West Ham to honour our part of the bargain. I've got to say, I think it was a bad transfer at the time. I said it at the time, and I still believe that to be the case now. I think it was just badly advised, really. But West Ham are committed to sign the player and committed to pay him for that length of time, then we better bloody pay him. It's as simple as that. He's made his part. He's done his part of the bargain, right? The Nayef Aguerd situation is slightly... It's not slightly. The Nayef Aguerd situation is completely and utterly different. Because it's not even so much an open secret that West Ham are going to lose Nayef Aguerd. He's been agitating for a move, reportedly, allegedly, for the best part of 18 months. Everybody knew that before the African Cup of Nations that Aguerd wanted to leave. There were a lot of rumours surrounding the club that Aguerd had basically was completely focused on the African Cup of Nations, was not focused at West Ham. Basically, he'd checked out. But it wasn't the fault of West Ham. At the time, David Moyes was still a massive Nayef Aguerd fan. He loved him. Chased him for 2 years, eventually got him, won the European trophy, absolutely brilliant. In many respects, we stood by him. You know, we got him. We weren't able to use him straight away because he got injured in a pre-season friendly against Rangers. But it was Nayef Aguerd who decided he wanted to leave West Ham. So much so that he went and appointed a new agent. Last year, halfway through the season, not only did he appoint a new agent, and I remember I did a video at the time saying appointing a new agent's one thing, sort of broadcasting it is quite another. And it was quite obvious what was going on there, which, as I said at the time when I did the video, it was basically Nayef Aguerd and his representative saying, hello, I'm here, we want to move away from West Ham. So everything we heard was that Aguerd wanted to leave West Ham, and everything that we saw basically confirmed that rumour. The switch of agents was very much a drive to get a move. And I think one of the reasons why I suspect Nayef Aguerd lost patience with West Ham and wanted a move was I think he was unsuited to the style of football. I think maybe what was sold to him as a concept probably wasn't what he got at the time. However, I think he won a European trophy, and yes, I've said on numerous occasions the style of football probably didn't suit him. And there's possibly a point last season he looked at West Ham, and sometimes we were getting thrashed, be it Fulham putting 5 past them, or Crystal Palace, or Arsenal thumping us and thrashing us. We were getting thrashed, and I think it came to a point where he thought, I'm better than this. I am much better than this. Basically getting hammered all the time, under pressure, probably doing a job he didn't particularly enjoy, and he wanted out. So what Nayef Aguerd decided was, I can do better than this. I want to move to a bigger club that plays my style of football. And I guess that's absolutely fine. I guess you can do that, but it didn't come. It's not happened. We did the first 2 bits. He let it be known that he wanted to leave. And then he hired the agent. But that big club never came in. That big money move that he was certain that he was going to get never happened, and it never transpired. As I believe to be the case. I think the club were unrealistic at one point. I think the club thought they were going to get £35 million for Nayef Aguerd. Forget it. Aguerd hadn't got better at West Ham. He'd got worse. And I think Aguerd and the club at one point probably thought, hey, he's enhanced his reputation. He really hadn't. You cannot, as a defender, come off of a season like we've just had with an enhanced reputation. You just can't. And I guess he'd shown himself a little bit susceptible and vulnerable to injury as well. There'd been the question marks hanging over his head with his, let's say, his commitment to the club. Although it has to be said, any time I've ever seen Aguerd, he seems to have an incredibly good attitude. He seems to be a really, really nice guy, very likeable, and no one at the club really questions him as a person. But he wanted to leave. And then I think gradually the club came to the realisation, we're not going to get 30 million. And you started hearing it. They'd accept 25 for him. They'd accept 20. His price plummeted. His price started going down. And I felt there was a realism with West Ham where we thought, we're not going to get what we want for this guy. Not so much cutting of the losses, if you want, but get some fee for him and get him out of here. Get a fee for somebody who's probably depreciated in value a little bit and doesn't want to be here. Okay. What I don't think's happened is I don't think Nayef Aguerd reassessed his standing in the game. I think he still thinks, quite possibly, and this is me saying these words, I'm not putting words into his mouth, but perhaps he thinks that whatever that bid from Juventus was still going to come, that Real Madrid bid was still going to come, that the Saudis were going to come in and pay the sort of money that eye-watering money for him. It just never happened. None of it ever happened. The fact of the matter is none of the big clubs have come in for Nayef Aguerd, and the reason being because he's probably not good enough. So West Ham, apparently, we've had an offer from offer from Galatasaray. That was rejected, and it was a loan deal, loan with an option or an obligation to buy. We'll never know the truth. And then yesterday, Jacob Steinbergen released a story that Wolfsburg from the Bundesliga had offered to take him on loan. Two options there, and he's rejected them both. Now, I guess he can do that, but it's completely contradictory because you think, well, hold on, you want to leave, but now you're rejecting chances to go. And the fact of the matter is, I think he feels, well, I don't think, I know because of the statement that was put out last night, which I'll tell you in just a second, that was put out by his friend on Instagram. I think he feels that the options for him to leave West Ham are a little bit beneath him. So Aguerd has accused the club of freezing him out. And the accusation, as I say, has been put out there on Instagram by his friend, which is a bit of a strange way to do it. I mean, just come out, just own it, just do it if you're going to do it. And that is that basically the club have frozen him out. What he's saying is the club are refusing to play me now. That I'm no longer being played by West Ham because I've rejected a move to Turkey and I've rejected a move to Wolfsburg. He didn't say Wolfsburg. In fact, actually, let's get this right. The statement said he's rejected moves to Saudi Arabia and he's rejected moves to Turkey. Okay. Well, firstly, I think if you want to leave and you've been agitating for a move away from the club for quite a long time, certainly a solid 6 months he's publicly wanted out from West Ham, let's put it that way. No one's come in. At some point you have to reassess your options. I think, well, maybe that's your level. Maybe the club's coming in for you are not interested. Look, Juventus was trying to beat the door down for Jean-Claire Todibo. You'd have thought if Aguerd was that good, or he was that coveted across Europe, the when they couldn't get him, maybe they'd have been coming to West Ham and say, okay, we can't get that Todibo, can we get that Aguerd off you? We've got a nice winger here that apparently you're interested in. It never happened. The interest was never there. And I think Aguerd, judging by his... It's not his. Let's not pin it all on him. Maybe it's just... You have to imagine that his friend has had permission to write this. I think almost Aguerd feels that there's some bids from other clubs that we're not accepting and we want to force him out to a club that's lower than his playing level. That's a bit weird. But I think the really odd thing is, and the thing that puzzles me most, is this thing, I'm being frozen out because I won't accept the transfers that West Ham want. It's completely contradictory. First of all, it was Aguerd by changing agents and who went out publicly and started agitating for a move. that caused the issue. But I think the biggest thing is, I don't know. I can't say whether West Ham are freezing him out or they're not. They may be. He may be right. But I'll tell you how it looks from the outside. And that is that he's not good enough to get into the team. And I wouldn't blame, I would not blame anyone at the club, bearing in mind they have a player who wants to leave, if he wasn't factored into the planning. He really wasn't. That actually they thought, well, this guy's wanting to be off anyway, so we're going to sign a different left-sided, left-footed central defender. And we did so in Max Kilman. Aguerd is not out of the team at left centre-back because he's been frozen out. It's because he's nowhere near as good as Max Kilman. But he's got some, honestly, he must have some belief in himself. And I guess you've got to have that to be a footballer. For him to think, well, look at it and think, well, hold on, Todibo's not even in the starting lineup at the moment because of how good Kilman and Mavropanos have been. So he must be, honestly, he must be thinking, he thinks there's some conspiracy. Maybe there is. I just don't see it. I just think the guy in front of him is better. Simple as that. I think after a sustained period of letting it be known to your employers that you don't want to be there anymore, of course they're not going to factor you in. It actually mirrors what was happening with David Moyes, I feel, last season, at the point where David Moyes admitted he'd let it be known he probably wasn't going to sign. Tim Steidten was well within his rights to go out and start looking for replacements for David Moyes. The fact of the matter is, I think we might have got rid of Moyes anyway, but Moyes had said it. He's subsequently said it since then in 2 separate podcasts, that he decided, his decision, I decided not to stay at West Ham. So West Ham were quite within their rights to go and source a new head coach, manager, whatever you want to call it. West Ham quite within their rights to go and source new centre-backs. And so I just find it really odd. So now we have this, it's like his pride has been wounded. And I don't know how long he's going to sit around waiting for this bid from, he said, I'm waiting for a bid from Europe. Well, clearly not from the Bundesliga, clearly not from Wolfsburg. Maybe it's not the Bundesliga, maybe he's waiting for Bayern Munich to come in or something like that. Wolfsburg just aren't big enough. But we know this, he doesn't think West Ham are big enough. I think he's a bit unrealistic, actually. And I've been a big fan of Aguerd for a long time. I think he's got a lot of ability, and I think in the right team he's a good player. I really do. But he might well find he's got to rebuild himself again. He's just not on a hit list of the top clubs. Bit of an odd one, and at the moment, unfortunately, it's you do have a stalemate because we can't bring any more players in until some go out. And you do have this absolute paradox of a situation, really, whereby a player agitates for a move, changes his agent, tries to get the move, doesn't get the move, then gets offered moves, decides not to take the move, and then ends up staying at a club where he doesn't want to be, just collecting wages, not playing any football at all, whilst believing that he's so talented that he believes should be playing football at a higher level than the club at which he sat on a bench. I find the whole situation weird.